What about us? When and how can we be guilty of breaking the second commandment? Because I think most of us are smart enough to know the difference between worshiping a statue of Jesus and worshiping Jesus himself, right? Well, that depends. If all of the images that I hold in my heart of what Jesus looked like resembles only the actor Jim Caviezel, then yeah, I might be guilty of breaking the second commandment if I can only ever picture Jesus as a white man. If Jesus showed up looking a lot more like a second century Galilean, and I was either unable or unwilling to see him as Jesus, then I would be guilty of breaking the second commandment. After all, this is what got the Pharisees. They had some image in their mind or in their heart of what God must be, that they missed God when he was right in front of them. This is, I think, God's warning to us in the second commandment. That we should, whenever we are comparing God to anything, we should be careful lest we believe that God must only be that thing. That's how idolatry happens in our hearts. An example of this is it's common to refer to God as Father. And I actually think that's pretty appropriate. Jesus referred to God as Abba. So I don't think there is a harm in us picturing God as Father. But we must always remember that he's so much more than Father. Or that he's far greater than any earthly human example of Father that we may know. The second commandment is a reminder to us that God cannot be put in a box. And anytime we would create an image, a statue, or an icon of God, or anytime we would get too comfortable with our own images of what God must be in our heart, we run the risk of missing him when he shows up. We must remember that the point of faith is to know and be known by Christ. Everything else kind of flows out of that. We talked about this in our Sunday school class this morning. The better you know somebody, the easier it's going to be for you to pick them out of a crowd. Or to instantly know who it is you are talking to after one word on the phone. Because you know them. Same thing is true with Jesus. The more we get to know Jesus, the harder it will be for us to miss him when he shows up unexpectedly or looking a little differently than we think that he will. Like God seems to like to do at times. Remember, it wasn't until Mary heard Jesus' voice, Mary, that she recognized Jesus for who he was in the garden, even though he looked like the gardener. She recognized him because she knew the voice of the master.